Gigabyte Lenovo IdeaPad with Productivity Suite. Regularly $519.99. Today, it's $249.99 with interest-free Easy Pay. Shop now at tsc.ca. Today's shopping choice.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe. And I'm your host, Wolu. I'm joined by Blake Murphy, producer.
Blake Murphy.
I didn't know this drop was this long, but Blake, once again, still the only person on this program that has their own theme song. So, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
I'm not. I mean, I'm good. Personally, I'm good.
Yeah.
Just watching the Raptors, though, I don't know. I'm a little down bad. Like,
okay. I want to. I'm gonna steal control from you for a second here. I'm gonna run points. So before we get into all the negative stuff about the Raptors, you and Alex Wong put on an event last night.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Chris Boucher was there, some other special appearances.
Shout out to Jimmy King.
Yeah, what a shocker that one was.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. Shout out to Jimmy.
Reignite this Vancouver-Toronto rivalry.
Yeah, he was like, you know why Toronto kept their team? Because they have fans. I was like, yo, I forgot that this is like a real rivalry from back in the day.
This is, it can get heated, man. I was talking to Brad Fay the other day because he went and he saw this Grizzlies documentary that's out, and Brad Fay is from out west, and I don't know if you know this, but Brad Fay can hoop.
You're telling me Brad Fay's a true hooper?
Like played Canadian college hoops.
Oh wow,
yeah,
wow. Put some respect on Brad Fay.
Yeah,
okay.
But yeah, like I think originally he was going down the path of like he'd probably be a Grizzlies guy instead of a Raptors guy.
Of course.
And we were kind of talking about what the media landscape would be like, and would we be the Raptors station, or like would we have 41 Raptors and 41 Grizzlies? It would be funny if the rivalry also became media rivalry, and like the Grizzlies blog boys and the Raptors blog boys or blog people each other in the similar way. Like when I used to blog about the Canucks and the Leafs at the same time when I lived out in Vancouver, like there was nothing that bothered Canucks fans more than the fact that I also wrote about the Leafs.
Really? Yeah.
So I wonder if we'd have had that with Grizzlies and Raptors blogs. We missed a whole era of Twitter fighting.
Yeah, I think that might be the one good thing about the Grizzlies not being in Vancouver anymore. No, I mean it's listen, I mean this is still a real thing as I've learned because this again this rivalry was like before I started following basketball really. But
borderline before you were born, not quite, but almost.
No, and I wasn't even in the country, right? So I wasn't even aware of anything. I don't even think I knew about the sport of basketball until I came here. But no, I did get one very very rare negative review, which unfortunately for this person listening, please change this, okay? Because it had nothing to do with the show. It's literally just I live in BC. My regular listening is Sportsnet 650 out there, and they're just like, yo, they don't want to hear this Toronto Raptors show. So they left a 1-star review. How does that have anything to do with me? It's not like I chose to put this on in Vancouver.
It doesn't.
So please change your review. Colin_BC.
Yeah,
I really make sure he's from BC.
You go into a restaurant, you order one thing off the menu, and complain about something else on the menu that you didn't order.
Exactly.
I don't really get it. Anyway, so Jimmy King aside, Grizzlies aside, you guys hold this event last night.
Yep.
Capacity sold out. Raise money for the Slim Duck Foundation.
Yep.
Have to say on behalf of the Raptors community, I mean, I'm proud of you, but you guys continuing to use this platform and this community you guys have built to, give back and continue to grow the basketball community, especially in very diverse ways as well around the city. It's great, man. So great job to you and Alex and everyone else who was involved with that event.
I appreciate you. I think we got to give a huge shout out to Elaine Kwan, who helped organize everything. The original JQ of Raptors PR, just in terms of she was the first one there for one that franchise was starting way back when in '95, and Elaine was huge in putting this together. Big shouts to Colin as well from Hong Shing catering the event. I thought everyone there, the reviews on the food was excellent. I know Derek got the VIP reviews of the food in the back, so I know Derek was pretty happy with that as well.
Hold up, I know we can't turn the camera, but did Alex get a to-go plate from last night? Alex has a paper plate and fork behind the glass right now.
We promised because our YouTube producer.
Hey guys,
TV
just
producer.
wanted to chime in here.
Okay.
Actually, today's Frank Baraska's last day helping us behind the scenes. So I went to Italy to pick up some tiramisu. I believe that's how it's pronounced. That's what I'm eating, guys.
Shout out to Frank.
Shout out to Frank. Tiramisu. Sounds like a Japanese dessert, but I don't think it is, right? Is
tiramisu?
Is it in Italian?
I think it's tiramisu.
Yeah, I think it's Italian.
It's Italian?
Yes, it's Italian.
I mean, he got it from Italy.
I know that.
That's like a pun on Italy, right?
Oh yeah, no, don't worry. I made the order. Alex made sure to pick it up. It was a funny day today because I was down at OVO this morning to chat with Thad Young, which we'll play tomorrow. It was a great interview. Thad gave some great answers. Excited for everyone to hear that one.
Did you have to go into the cold tub to interview him? Like he was taking so long in the cold tub, you guys sit in there?
That's what happened last time. We're going to interview Thad Young. But the thing is, so practice, usually you get in there for 12 o'clock. And obviously it's down at Exhibition Place, that area, right? So it's a little bit further to come here. It's at least half an hour. And I take the bus, so it's 45 minutes. So because last time Thad took a while, just because his usual routine. He's such a pro. He goes in the cold tub. This is how you play 16 years and counting, right? We had to literally come back to the studio and then call him from here, even though we were down there. So this time around, as soon as his warm up was done, a PR staff was right beside him, being like, "Look, Thad, I know you want to go in the cold tub, but you got to go and talk to this guy instead." So I appreciate that. No, Thad gave some great answers, but Alex was on deck just in case I couldn't make it back to the studio in time. We would have had a very rare appearance where he would have been doing Blake Murphy Tuesdays with you. So I would have been very curious in terms of what Alex would have asked you about basketball, because I know famously he's not the biggest fan of the sport.
I feel like you would have spent 15 minutes asking about getting me to look up on the Rogers website if he gets paid overtime for doing a Tuesday, and then we probably would have talked
that's in
about
his contract.
We would have used the Jimmy King hook from last night to talk about his book.
Yeah, well, I know Jimmy is going to be in the book, as with everybody.
It's a great book.
What did that say?
It's a great book.
It's a great book.
Yeah, Matt Devlin was in studio with us, and somehow Derek has actually clipped every single thing everyone has ever said into small bits, and so I think that was referring to Cover Story, a book that I famously read, for sure. So anyway, listen, thank you. The event was awesome. It was great to see everyone out there. I think it was just a good chance to sort of bring everyone together in the same space, and I think a lot of people made a lot of Raptor friends in that moment, got a lot of prizes, and got to see Chris in a really open element. I mean, you and I know this, obviously, because we've been covering the team, but Chris is a guy who's a really well-spoken person. And more than that, too, is like he's very transparent and open with things. So we people asked him, there was all sorts of stuff. Like, we had an open, question and answer period. And I think one guy at the end was doing his media thing because he hopped in. He's like, Chris, I got to ask you at the players-only meeting, what happened? Give us all the details, right? And listen, it's hard to say no when there's 350 people just, like, looking at you right there. But Chris was like, what players-only meeting? He's like, yeah, I wasn't part of that. There wasn't anything like that. So we'll get to the bottom.
Maybe it was a struggling players only meeting because Chris Boucher's been, him and Thad have been like the two consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, they obviously everyone has a bad night now and then, but yeah, night to night, it's those two and Pascal.
Yeah, no, seriously, I really don't worry about those guys. So we're gonna get to an interview with that as well. We talked about the players only meeting there because he was reportedly one of the leaders of that, trying to get them to start. But listen, there's a lot of issues with the team, and this is something that. Even when we sat down yesterday, Alex is like, please don't grill them. Just ask Chris softball questions. We're having a charity event. And my first question was, Chris, I've been talking to everyone in line, and number one point of concern is you guys lost to the Magic twice. What's going on with you guys? Are you guys okay? So
a live trade machine session with Chris Boucher. Just, hey, Chris, which one of your teammates would you trade away to fix this? And what are you looking for back?
Oh, man. Yeah. So, I mean, Chris was confident. Right?
Yeah,
he's like, look, listen, we're going to be okay. Yes, obviously we need to take care of business, but give them credit, and we're going to be okay.
I thought Pascal's quotes that you guys were tweeting and posting clips of from practice today showed that same kind of, and I know this is sometimes hard with guys like Boucher who come up in the system because like your anchor to them is when they're inexperienced rookies, right? I first met Chris Boucher when he was with the Warriors G League team.
Damn.
So like that is my anchor point. But then you zoom out, it's like, yeah, he's one of the longest tenured guys. And like, he's a leader on this team now. He knows the system. He's been here. He's a voice. So when you hear that last night from him, when you hear what Pascal said today about, not pointing fingers and everyone being in it together and what else are you going to say, I guess. But it's cool to see those guys who a couple years ago would have said just the most basic cliche and deferred to Kyle and DeMar or then Kyle and Danny or whatever, now being those guys.
Right. But listen, with all due respect, the speaking has been good. I don't think anyone has said anything out of turn. I think everyone sort of maintained the same message, and I believe it. I don't think it's like a message in terms of trying to hide something. I think they all believe in this. But I think we do need to see it in the action as well. The Raptors are now under 500 after losing twice to the Orlando Magic. And when I was speaking to fans, everyone's concern is the same, like what's going on with the team. And so, look, I think I want to go through an exercise here with you and just look at some of the bigger issues with the team right now and find both a short-term fix in terms of and I'm talking about short-term like tomorrow against Sacramento and then Friday, and the next game. And that's short-term, and then a long-term, which means maybe the trade deadline or even beyond that. And just try to go through some of these concerns. But what are you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say I have a major short-term concern, and it was the other thing from practice today that OG's out for the week. Precious is still out until the new year probably, and Otto Porter needs at least a month more with his toe. But we don't think he needs surgery. Like, did his toe fall off?
It's interesting because I think with Otto, like last year, the Warriors did such a good job managing his injuries. Because he's been a player where over the course of his career he's missed a lot of time, especially after the first few seasons in Washington, and you just got to be real careful with a guy like that, right? Like with the Warriors, for example, they didn't play on the second night of back-to-backs, right? They held him out, they gave him that kind of treatment, and we saw that he's able to produce for you late into the season, as late as June. Like he was playing for the Warriors
20 minutes a game.
Yeah, exactly, throughout the course of the playoff run. So I think they just got to find a good plan in terms of how to manage him and his body. But I think he's a pretty important piece of the Raptors. Like, if we're going to talk about three-point shooting, we do miss Otto's three-point shooting.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about some rim protection stuff, too, or what the pick-and-roll offense looks like. And you don't have Precious Achiuwa in the fold for another couple weeks, it sounds like. Yeah, the short-term fixes here are going to be, is there duct tape around anywhere or Band-Aids or anything like that?
I got to imagine, Alex McKechnie and Scott McCullough are busy like every single day.
Yeah.
They might be the busiest people on the Raptors.
A bulk order of red shoelaces.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, so let's start there because of the injuries. That's actually the number one thing I had on my list. OG's injury, out at least a week. He'll be reevaluated after that. Short term, it seems like the solution is to start Gary. That's what we saw in the Orlando game, the second one where OG missed. You have Gary in that starting group. What other sort of accommodations do you need to see from that starting group with Gary in place of OG?
This is tough with the number of injuries you have right now, especially to three guys who potentially play power forward / center for you in the case of Precious and sometimes even OG. I don't know that Christian Koloko can keep starting.
Okay.
I think that Nick Nurse's confidence in him has gotten pretty low. The hook's pretty quick. Yeah, he gets in foul trouble, but like getting in foul trouble is not an asterisk. It's part of the issue, fouling a lot. I don't know. I was kind of hoping that Koloko would get a G League stint this week. The 905 play at home Wednesday and Friday. Unfortunately, those times are at the exact same time as the Raptor games.
Yeah.
So if they're worried about depth, which they probably are, I don't know if Koloko goes down, or maybe they send Koloko down and call Champagny back up or something like that.
Sure.
But for right now, I wonder if they try something new there, because I think Gary moving into OG's spot is fine. We've seen Gary start. We know, especially now that his shooting has come around a little bit, we know he can give a little bit of room to breathe to Pascal and Fred and Scotty. He knows how to play off of those guys, even if the lineup data isn't super strong with that group. The bigger question, I think, is what do you do with the other position? Because if it's Koloko, we've seen that right now, and he's solid defensively. Like, you can absolutely see the building blocks there that they're looking at.
Yep.
But offensively right now, it's not really a team that can afford to have a non-factor offensively. And at this point with his finishing, like, teams aren't even really guarding him on the roll anymore. So weirdly, OG goes out, Gary goes back in the starting lineup. That's the easy part for me. The bigger question is, what do you do with the other spot? Do you keep starting Koloko?
It's one of those things where I just don't know what the Raptors should be doing at center, because the alternative is, like, you start Thad at center, which means you're starting Small at center, or you start Kem at center, which means you're starting Kem at center. And then the other solution, potentially, well, this is more with OG's healthy, but you could just go back to your centerless start, which you had for pretty much all of last season. I mean, to be honest, the numbers around that group weren't excellent, and you and I were in these exact same positions talking about how we can sort of change that lineup. But to me, it's just like, if those are your options, I wouldn't mind seeing some more small ball. I think I'd probably go with Thad in this group, just to have somebody who can kind of organize it. We've seen Thad being very effective with the starting groups. I wouldn't mind seeing that switch, but that does mean that you are smaller. You no longer have the rim protection, right? And of course you have your small backcourt again, which I think that does cause some issues for Toronto. But I think in the short term, without OG, because you're missing such a big piece, that is sort of what you need to do. Start Gary and then look at what else you do at center. Long term, I think my suggestion is just similar to the offseason, is like, we got to get OG some reliable backups. And maybe they did. Maybe they got Otto and Juancho, and they were like, those are your OG backups, right? Obviously, none of those guys are as good as OG, but proven vets in this league who can play a solid 3-4 position for you. Just turns out those two guys are hurt now. Like, come
Although
on.
Juancho's supposed to be back tomorrow.
Juancho's back tomorrow, thank goodness.
So,
Okay.
we think. Nick was, like, optimistic about it today. He practiced today.
Okay, all right.
It just, until you see the guy out there, it's not 1,000%. So maybe Juancho is he started a little bit before. Although I don't really want to break up Juancho and Thad. Like, they have their weird little mind meld going. Long term, yeah, I think the question this introduces is, and it's not a new or a novel question, but it's, does Vision 6-9 or having all of these forwards, does being bigger at the 2, the 3, the 4 make up for being smaller at the 5?
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're trying to bet on here. And yes, OG's strong enough. Precious has enough rim protection instinct. Individually, these guys are good enough defensively, but it's hard not to look at the way they've struggled to protect the rim this year. And, like, we know that their style is about forcing turnovers and they're okay giving up corner threes. But part of the idea of Vision 6-9 is, well, if you have so much length on the floor that it's hard for guys to drive into space comfortably, that can help you make up for the lack of rim protection, because it's harder to get there.
Right.
And this year they're giving up a lot at the rim, and that started trending that way last year too. So that's I think the long-term question is, even if it's not someone who's a 30-minute a game part of your big core, are you better off being huge 2, 3, 4 Scotty, Pascal, OG, and then you have an actual center?
Yeah, and listen, this isn't just like because this is one of the big takeaways after facing the Sixers. Is like, damn, we had nobody throwing at Embiid. And to be honest, there's very few people in this league. Like there's very few people in the world that you can throw at Embiid, right? But I think even those games against the Magic, one of the big turning points was Orlando was able to really, really protect the paint and also keep the Raptors off the offensive glass. Not only because the Raptors couldn't shoot threes so they can really collapse, but also they had just a lot of size.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were bigger across the board than the Raptors. And the whole idea for the Raptors is at least to create some mismatches, right? Yes, you can see that your point guard's small and that your center is small, but you should be big across the other positions. Orlando was like, yeah, we're actually just bigger than you at every single spot. And I think that really played into a factor as to why that was a bad matchup.
And you even look at the week ahead here, right? It's like, okay, well, the Raptors don't have, and you can include Christian Koloko, but I think even if he's starting at this point, like we're talking like 15 minutes a game.
Yeah.
So you're going to be playing sometime small, and like Kem Birch is more of a traditional center, but he's still only 6'9".
Yeah.
He's not a huge dude. So you're going up against, you got this 3-game set against 3 teams that don't play super large. It's DeMontis Sabonis, Nick Claxton, Kevon Looney as the 3 starting centers. Guess who has the size advantage at center in every one of those games? Not the Raptors.
Right.
So even against the teams that nominally play a little smaller, like Sabonis 6'11", but he's like a perimeter-oriented guy. He's he's got the ball in his hands.
Yeah, he's inside out.
And when he was in Indiana, he was basically a power forward. So, and then like Claxton and Looney are solid, but they're not solid because they're huge dudes.
Yeah.
So even against these teams where on paper you'd be like, yeah, that's a team you can start smaller against, the Raptors are still smaller.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, so this brings me to the next point of concern is just this topic of the lack of center production. And I think, look, short term, as in like this week, who do you want to see start at center?
I think I would go with that.
You go with that. Okay.
Because
all right.
I think you got to win a couple of these games. Like I think you need. I mean, look, you could take 0 out of these 3 and still turn it around, but like to come out of this week feeling good, if you could take 2 of these 3,
I feel great about that.
Yeah, especially with no OG. So
Yeah.
I'm. Even though the Thad start doesn't set your bench up in the best possible way, and you're a little smaller,
And Gary's starting now too, so you really don't have like creators off the bench. You have chaos agents and like Chris, and you have
and you got to get more
who
in.
else even come off the bench right now? Damn, this rotation is
Wancho
short.
would be coming off the bench.
Wancho, yes.
Maybe you dust off Delano or Malachi at some point.
I wouldn't bet on that for Nick.
No. But no, that's, I think, starting your most reliable 5 players, and that's not fair to Chris Boucher, but Chris is just so good.
I mean, he's really good in his role.
Yeah, and I don't know that you'd want to move him out of that role. But yeah, starting your kind of 5 most reliable guys, the guys who no one's been super consistent on this team, but that's the closest thing to night you've gotten from those guys. So
right.
Yeah, I think their room for error is too small right now to get too gimmicky with the starting lineup or continue to play Koloko unless they're going to let him play through stuff. Like if you tell me, well, we got to develop Koloko, fine, but you can't only play him 7 minutes then. You got to be in or out.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing too, is like, do you develop a guy by letting him get, beaten every single game? Is that, you know what I mean? Like, I think like for Pascal, for example, obviously that was the last time we saw this, right? The Raptors didn't have a power forward because Jared Sullinger got hurt.
Yeah.
That plan didn't even go. That was a bad plan from the start. No offense, right? But, so they throw a rookie Pascal into that group. And at first it was like, wow, look at him. He's able to get ahead of the pack for layups. And occasionally he would knock down these like mid-range jumpers along the baseline. But eventually it was like, damn, the Raptors really need to get a solution here. And then midseason, they were able to get Serge. They were able to get PJ Tucker as well, who could play a little bit for you. That made sense, right? This is kind of screaming to me the same kind of scenario. Like, there is no actual long-term, even short-term solution at center for me, because I agree that should get a look. I wouldn't even mind if Kem got a look against a bigger guy like Sabonis. But long-term, there is no solution here. And this is where I think for Vision 6-9 to really work, having a true rim protector back there to help erase some mistakes and make plays for you defensively consistently, that has to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, priority for the front office right now.
It's also, we talk a lot about versatility defensively, and I think where everyone's head goes when you say defensive versatility is guys who can switch, right? And that's true to an extent. Like, part of why the Raptors are so good at transition offense and transition defense even though they crash the offensive glass. Like the Raptors are doing this thing you're not supposed to be able to do, where you crash the offensive glass really aggressively and still have a really good transition defense. Part of that is the versatility and flexibility of, well, when everyone runs back, we don't care who gets who to start a possession. That's big. But another part of versatility is, can you play different styles? Can you match up to a different team? And, you know, some teams might bait you into going zone or playing a drop coverage or letting a rim protector protect the rim in a more traditional way. Like you want that type of stylistic versatility along with just like, hey, is everyone roughly the same size?
Yeah. And look, we can look at the most successful roster build for the Raptors, which we all know is 2019. That team had a very traditional starting five, right? Kyle Lowry is your classic point guard, you know, can play make for you, mostly looking to play make, but also can score for you if you need it. Danny Green is as shooting guard as it gets, okay?
Yes.
Maybe on the low end of shooting guards in terms of like more strictly 3 and D, but he knew his role exactly. Kawhi is your like classic Hall of Fame, you know, small forward. Can do a little bit of everything, can score for you, can rebound for you, board man gets paid, all that kind of stuff, right? And then you look at Pascal, right? A little bit of a, you know, harder to define him as just a power forward, but that season his role was power forward. Knock down corner threes, get your buckets one-on-one in the post.
Hit the glass,
you know, run out in transition, give you some athleticism. Again, a very, very classic power forward role. And then Marc Gasol was more of a spacing center, but defensively played a really, really classic defensive center role for you. And then you got guys coming off the bench in Fred who can play up into 2-point guard lineups, which obviously we saw in the Milwaukee and the Warriors series. Norm is a classic 2 guard. Serge is a very classic 4-5 who can kind of play both positions. That was your rotation, right? That is not Vision 6-9. That is just like we have a group of players who can guard if it was an opposing team of 6-9 guys, or they can guard an Embiid, you know, on that side, or we can guard a team built around Steph, or we can guard against a team like Giannis. But you need all those versatility of pieces to get that kind of thing done.
Right.
Obviously, the Raptors are very far from what they were in 2019, but you know, I think aspiring to Vision 6-9 is cool, but you really do need that versatility.
And look, Vision 6-9 is great if all of those guys, like if Scotty Barnes is a point guard and Pascal Siakam is a small forward and OG is like, if everyone eventually slots into those slots skill wise, and it's not a Scotty Barnes is a point guard, it's Scotty Barnes is a point guard, then yeah, that can play out that way. And they're in a bit of a tough spot because the way that Vision 6-9 came about, in part because of just who they lost and when and what they were able to find undervalued in the draft in Pascal and OG and stuff like that. It wasn't really, hey, we want all of these guys. It was just the most important thing at the spots we're drafting and signing is talent. And talent is the way more important than anything else when you're building a basketball team.
I agree.
But once you have a certain amount of talent, then it becomes fit and the way things work together and how your system matches your roster and stuff like that. And I think that's the kind of friction point that this front office and coaching staff are at right now. And this is, you know, their time to try to evaluate, like, sure, none of this, like the fit doesn't matter at all. If Pascal and OG and Scotty Barnes and Fred don't turn into themselves, who cares, right? Like, who cares what the fit is? And if they're absolute unquestioned superstars, you almost don't care either because they're just so like Steph, Clay, and Draymond is not exactly how you would have drawn it up. It's kind of close, but you know, I'm sure they would have liked a true center over the years at times. But
I mean, even look at the team that won last year. Like, okay, Steph is an alien, honestly. Okay, so hard to put a position on him, but clearly a point guard. Clay is a very, very classic shooting guard. Draymond is your forward, right? And then you have Wiggins, who's a very, very normal small forward. And then you have Looney, who is, you know, maybe not as dominant and maybe not even as big as a usual center, but defensively plays excellently at that position.
Yeah, and he just
Another
does
regular
center
build.
things. Yeah. So this is where, again, like it's tough because you get all these guys who fit this, and like I think it's more like us jokingly have branded it Vision 6-9 than anything Masai and Bobby and Nick were like, this is how we see basketball. It just, these were the kind of guys that were available and that they thought had the highest upside at 27, at 23. They liked Barnes better than Jalen Suggs, even though Jalen Suggs maybe on paper fit the roster build more naturally.
Sure, I get that,
Franz Wagner, maybe.
No, come on.
No,
man.
we don't need to do
We
that.
don't need to do that.
I'm just
We're
teasing.
not down that badly.
I'm
Okay,
just
good.
teasing.
Happy for you, Franz. Okay.
Yes.
That you were able to play well.
So that's where they're at, I think. And, this past offseason and even the one prior, I do wonder if maybe they went on tilt a little too far the other way after the Aaron Baines, Alex Len thing, where it's like,
no, they were so bad. The Raptors are like, no, never
reaching
again, no
for
centers.
7-footers just to have 7-footers, and like not even. I think Baines like 6'10" or 6'11", like just to have guys who can play that position didn't work out very well, and I think that kind of enforced to them, getting good players is the most important thing. So just get good players. If Otto Porter becomes available, if Thad Young becomes available, who cares? Just get the best players possible.
Right.
And that is a really good phase 1, phase 2 of building a roster out. They're at a point now, though, where we're seeing that, you do need a second guy who can handle the ball somewhere on the roster for the bench unit. And you need someone who can at least come in matchup-wise and play big. Because the other thing with the starting lineup that they played last year, and it was big, but like, would over the course of a whole season, would you really want Scotty Barnes or Pascal Siakam like playing against fives? OG, I think they're fine with it because he's so strong. Like everyone,
but OG's better when you put him on the perimeter wings and you can really put him on the best assignments. And you can't really do that when you're always asking him to play center. That's the thing to me. It's like if your core pieces are Pascal, OG, and Scotty, and none of those guys really want to play center, get them a center.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's got to be an important thing. And to me, my question is like long term. So we can obviously draft a center, trade for a center, sign a center. I think most likely the option in season obviously would be to trade for one. Is there any concern for you that like if you bring in a center that does block that position from potentially going to Precious or Koloko? And you know what I mean? Like if let's say you, for example, we trade for Jakob Poeltl, right? I think you gettable. The Raptors can do it. I think clearly there'll be a fit, right? You bring in Jakob Poeltl. You re-sign him obviously in the offseason as well because you got his bird rights. Okay, so then when does Christian ever start for you in the future? What's the avenue for Precious to start for you in the future? Or do you just say, look, listen, whatever, you got to play well enough to start?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's if you get to that point where one of the bench guys is pushing Jakob Poeltl or Miles Turner or whoever it is, Dwight Powell, like pick your guy.
I was a little bit bigger than Dwight Powell.
Sure. I just brought up who's a free agent this year. I just read the top of that list. And Poeltl, he's on there as well. So you can bring in one of those guys and plug that hole now. And if you have to move that guy to the bench later or cut his minutes or whatever, that means that something else has clicked and gone well.
Yeah.
And I would much rather manage the roster in a way that the tough questions I have to answer are because too many guys are playing well enough for that spot, then we don't have enough guys to play in that spot. I also think just like rosters change so quickly in the league that like, you think back to the DeLon Wright draft pick and everyone's like, oh yeah, this is great. Like he's an older prospect, the analytics like him, he can step in and play right away. And you got that, like you got a backup point guard who can play right now at the number 20 pick. And then they turn around and sign Corey Joseph, and then DeLon Wright ends up, spending a huge chunk of time with the 905 and never really gets his role. Like things change so quickly.
No, it's true.
Roster
right.
wise.
And then Fred comes in the next year, and then ultimately Fred jumps him in the rotation as well. Then he's traded, and now he's randomly in Washington.
And like
DeLon Wright, I like that guy, man.
Yeah,
remember when he crossed up Kelly Oubre and all that stuff, man.
Him and Oubre had like a thing, right?
I know, that was the most random beef. Was 2018 Raptors Wizards series, Kelly Oubre versus DeLon Wright. No one could have seen that coming.
So that and this is where you're at with the center thing too, right? Where you trade for Poeltl, say, and then you re-up him, and then maybe Koloko doesn't become anything, and you're glad you didn't hold that spot waiting for someone to develop on a timeline that they weren't ready to develop on. Or maybe he becomes a guy, and then Jakob Poeltl, who's not going to cost you $25 million, that's a decent, poor guy. You trade him again. And he's, that matches up and lets you address the guard depth or something like that. Like there are a lot of ways to change the roster. And I don't think this team, unless they decide to go hey, now's not the time, we're going to push the competitive window down the line to better fit Scotty instead of the Fred Pascal era. If they do that, then you try to draft and develop one.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, though, you cannot keep punt or not keep, because I don't think they've done this. I think it's just the way the roster's worked out. But in this hypothetical, I don't think you can punt on positions of need right now because someone you have might eventually be okay to fill it.
I agree.
That's a rebuilding team mentality. And if you want to win a playoff series or two, which I think that's where this team is, they're still deciding. But right now they look like that. I don't think you can do that.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, listen, we need to talk about the offense as well, because that's also a bit of a concern.
Do we have to?
I just watched the Raptors only hit 6 threes, man. That's tough. That's not even good enough for the Happy Meal fries promotion. McDonald's, please lower the fries promotion, okay? Drop it down to like 8 or something. There's no way they're gonna hit.
Did you
12
see the
threes
reply
these
that
days.
I gave to you the other day with the like number of times the fries promotion hit?
Oh, really? Oh, okay, yeah. What was it?
I don't. I'll find it
Okay.
during the break and we'll come back with it. But yeah, I actually went and looked up how many times fans would have got free fries over the last couple of years, and like it's comical how low it is this year.
Okay, the results will shock you. All right, we're gonna take this break. I'm your host, Willu. That's Blake Murphy. You're listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Will Lua. Continue to be joined by Blake Murphy, given that it is a Tuesday at this program. And just having a nice little laugh about Raptors media outfit choices. Not like we're super stylish or anything like that. I don't think that's true about us at all. But
you got your little Squirtle pin?
I do have a Squirtle pin, yeah. I think I'm the only one to actually put a Squirtle pin on an OVO sweater. I feel like that's almost desecrating the brand, but that's, this is shout out to the water starters. Okay, anyway.
I thought you were going to shout out Ash Ketchum or something like that.
Yeah, shout out to Ash Ketchum finally becoming world champion. Yeah. Finally, after like my entire childhood, you have finally won.
Took longer to win his first title than LeBron. Jeez.
Yo, bro, this guy was like the Boston Celtics, man. One title in 30 years. Oh, damn. I hope they don't win a title so we can keep that joke going. All right, look, we were talking about the three-point woes, and we actually made a comment because the Raptors obviously have this promotion with McDonald's where if the Raptors hit 12 or more threes, you get, I think, free medium fries the next day with an order or whatever. I definitely know this because there is a McDonald's near the office. But, Blake, you had actually gone through the stats and looked at how many times the Raptors fans have been able to enjoy this promotion over the years. So please present me with these findings.
So a little background. I love tracking this stuff. I don't know if you remember this piece, but when I coined Danny Green the Lord of the Fries, because he had hit the most threes that pushed the Raptors into free fry territory that year. So yes, Danny Green had gotten you the most fries that year. So I went back as far as that championship season. So 12 threes or more in a game. Oh no, I went 1 year further than that.
Okay, yeah.
So, because I think that's when it started, but Alex would have to confirm that for me.
Right.
Or Alex's mom's app or whatever.
Oh, she probably has the stats. She's like, I know Danny Green's Lord of the Fries. Anyway.
Yeah, he hit
you don't have to tell
41.2% on when it was the 13th three of the game or the 12th three of the game or whatever. Okay, so a couple years ago, and this will be, 43.
Okay, pretty good.
44.
Pretty good.
55.
55. The championship defense season was 55?
Then 59 with a pace of 67.
What?
If they had played the whole time. Yeah.
Wow.
48.
Yeah.
And right now, so 43, 44, 55, 59, 48. Never lower than 43.
Yeah.
As high as 59. They are on pace for 27 this
27? Year. Oh my God. No. So what are they at actually right now then?
They're at 9.
9.
Yeah. So
the streets are hungry, man.
We're
Please,
like right
Raptors.
at the 1/3 point of the season. I think they're 27 games in, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, 13 and 14. So you're 1/3 of the way through the season. They're at 9 right now. So quick math, 27 is what they're on pace for. It's pretty, like, I know it's an arbitrary cutoff.
No, but I mean, it's actually interesting to think about it in this way.
Because I think if you look at a box score and a team hits 12 threes or more, that's like a decent, they hit a bunch of threes tonight.
Yeah.
Like 10 feels almost too low in the modern NBA. Not a lot of nights where the Raptors hit a lot of threes.
Yeah, so let's jump off there because we're looking at short-term solutions and long-term solutions. Is there a short-term solution to the Raptors' three-point shooting woes right now?
By the way, sorry, I just looked it up, and the average team hits 12.1 threes.
Oh, okay,
this season.
Yeah.
So great number. So they've only hit an above-average number of threes 9 times.
Clearly, the McDonald's team has, some
me on staff.
Some analytics on their board, man.
Yeah. No. Wow. So the short-term, it's a yes, but a yes with an asterisk in that the short-term answer is guys get back to shooting the way they can.
Okay.
And some of that is variance. We know Fred's mechanics are off right now. We know OG was dealing with the hand thing. Maybe that affected his percentages. We know Gary was cold for a huge chunk of the season and has turned it around.
Right.
As much as it's really frustrating to hear this and doesn't make you feel better in the moment, three-point shooting varies a ton.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Usually it takes like a full season sample before we can say like this guy got worse at three-point shooting or this guy got better at three-point shooting with any statistical reliability. So a good chunk of this is these guys are going to hit more shots. You look into the profile, it's not as if they're taking more pull-ups or tougher threes or more heavily guarded threes. This is a pretty standard diet of threes. They create relatively normal looks, not exactly league average, but not far off of it. Some of these guys will shoot better, especially Gary Trent, OG, and Fred VanVleet. Maybe even Pascal. because he's back down to 31%.
Yeah. Well, he started the season really well with that.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that hasn't come back is the 3-point shooting.
And he's the guy who has the really tough diet of threes. Like, he's almost never in the corner anymore.
He's got to be in like a good rhythm for it too.
Yeah.
Right. For him, I just think that so much of his offense, even when it's like a pick and pop, like he needs to, it's not like when you're waiting in the corner, you can set your feet. You can obviously know when the passes are coming to you, whether directly off the kick out or the kick out to the wing and they swing into the corner. Like, you can set up really well for the corner threes. You can not even move for a whole possession and knock those down, like the classic PJ Tucker's thing. Mm-hmm. When you're having to pick and pop three from the top, like that is more involved. Even though that's a setup three, that's a little harder than waiting in the corner. So for Pascal, I get it, and I think it's for him a rhythm thing. Look, short term, that is the answer. Like, you just need positive regression.
And the asterisk there is, to use Gary for example, he's at 33.5. He's a 38.3% career 3-point shooter. The unfortunate part is we don't expect him to shoot 42% the rest of the way and even it out. Like, that's not how works. We'd expect him to shoot 38% the rest of the way. So even if everyone on the team shoots their career average for the last 2/3 of the season, you're still going to look at the end of the season and be like, ooh, this team didn't shoot threes particularly well. The other thing is, I did this math yesterday. In the half court only, if the Raptors had hit league average on threes during half court possession, so take out the transition stuff.
Yeah.
That would still only bump them to 25th in half court offense.
God damn. Well, there's issues. There's issues with the half-court offense. We're going to get to that next. But I think long-term solution-wise with the Raptors, I think it's pretty clear. We need to bring in more shooters.
Have to.
And I think we need to bring in shooters at certain positions, too. Like, if the Raptors can get in a spacing five, right? This is where, the Jakob Poeltl thing, it sounds great. I think he supports a lot of what the Raptors do. The one thing he doesn't do is knock down jumpers.
He's a huge defensive fit.
Yeah.
Offensively, it'd be nice for Fred in particular to have a rim runner.
Yeah, for sure.
But, yeah, the spacing element is not going to be a ton better.
I agree. But yeah, if you can get a spacing five, basically since Marc Gasol left the team, I've been looking for Marc Gasol to come back to the team. Like, and there's not another Marc Gasol in the league. Like, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's such a unique player, very accomplished. It's not like those guys just grow on trees, but that style of player where you can really defend for you and then also space out on the perimeter and be cool with that, and also do a little distributing as well. I think that fits the best with Pascal, OG, and Scotty, who all do primarily operate in the paint. So you probably want your five to also operate on the perimeter so that, there's more space there.
It's why I think Raptors fans have thrown Miles Turner in the trade machine more than just about anyone else over the years. Like, defensively, he's a 5. Offensively, he's probably a stretch 4.
Sure.
That is the kind of thing you would be looking for. He's probably going to be too expensive at this point. I don't know that we need to go down that road again, but that's why it's that type of guy who kind of makes sense at both ends.
Yeah. And I think the other thing with long-term solution for the spacing is, like, maybe you get a third guard who can really also put up some scoring for you, right? Because that's the other area that I'm looking at is, like, the Raptors don't get threes off the bench unless it's like Chris Boucher saying a hot night. We're not getting any threes off the bench. So normally where you would get that is from your third guard. Right.
And what are some of the best Raptors lineups in this era of the Raptors?
Yeah, 2 point guard lineups, which you can't even play right now because of the fact that Fred's struggling and also, like, Scotty's struggling. That's supposed to be your 2 point guard lineup,
right?
And those two guys aren't really producing. But anyway, you do need a third guard.
It is hilarious that the only guy who's shot well from 3 this year is Malachi Flynn, and he can't get
Malachi, what else do I need to do?
It's pretty amusing. He's 18 for 37 on threes.
I mean, would you play him though?
I would. I've said this. I feel like I'm getting repetitive.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
I would pick one of Delano or Malachi and just, like, let them play the backup guard minutes
and give them consistent backup guard minutes.
And you got to live with it and play through it because, like, eventually, like even when Fred's not playing that great, he's still playing so much. Like, that's not
he played the entire second half.
The situation is not going to get better when it comes to injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I do love that at the start of the year was let's get Fred more off ball and then let's get him playing less minutes so we can protect him. And then we're a third of the way in and we're in Orlando in a random December game and it's play Fred the entire second half and make him the number 1 option as well. Like,
do you want to hear an absolutely insane stat?
Wait, more insane than the McDonald's stat? Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So this is Raptors adjacent, but it does highlight just how this isn't always just a Raptors thing. Where do you think Kyle Lowry ranks in the league in total minutes played so far?
Oh, he's got to be up there. Miami's been struggling. I would say like minutes per game or total minutes?
Total minutes.
Probably top 20.
Fifth. He is 36 years old, almost 37.
You're 36. Yeah, no, that's I mean, listen, maybe that's Nick Nurse's thing though. He trains you to the point where you have 3 lungs, you know?
Yeah. The guys ahead of him on the list are 21, 26, 24, and KD.
Right. Who's ageless, honestly. That guy could play until he's 40, 45 even. Honestly, I feel
even then, like I know they've needed it. I don't know that I would play a guy who had an Achilles thing not all that long ago that much.
Does anything about Brooklyn strike you as like a long-term view? That thing is like let's get it while it's good.
No.
You know?
And then there's Miami where it's like, okay, we are apparently really bad this year, but what we're going to do is let Kyle stack up his career numbers so that Hall of Fame case looks better.
Yeah. Can we get Kyle back as the third guard? I wouldn't. I would love that if that were ever possible. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, yeah, the half court offense. I think we have 5 minutes to talk about the half court offense. Blake, every single time you're on, we ask you about the half court offense. The results are always the same. The Raptors are bottom 5, so they range from worst to bottom 5.
Dead last right now.
Oh, dead last right now. Good. So there's only up to go from here. Short term solution, long term solution. Short term solution. Please say there's something.
Some of that is baked into what we talked about with the 3-point shooting regressing.
Oh, but you just told me that if they shot threes even at an average level, half court wise, they'd still be 25th.
Wouldn't you feel better if they were 25th instead of 30th, though?
Would you even notice if they were 25th?
I mean,
we need to get at least into like the 10 to 20 range, please.
Yeah. You need to see that blue turn orange on the cleaning the glass page.
Oh, man.
Okay, so there are a couple things you can do better, certainly, that are within your control.
Okay.
And one of them is, ironically, you just like play in the half court less and just run even more. That's not gonna. Sure. That doesn't solve the half court.
To solve the problem, you avoid the problem. Actually, this is a classic example that I go to.
Yes, this is also we're skewing into my personal life now, not. So look, there are some things the Raptors do well on offense, and it's the things that when you hear us talk about, they get more shooting possessions than the other team at this extreme historic degree. Well, that's not just forcing turnovers on defense. The Raptors are the best team in the league at not turning the ball over, and they're 4th in offensive rebounding.
So you're telling me the best thing the Raptors do in the half-court offense is not turn the ball over?
Yes, and part of that.
Okay. But you know how that sounds.
Part of why you don't turn the ball over, you just don't pass the ball a lot.
Yeah.
It's why, and I don't mean to pick on Gary Trent, but statistically his page is very funny, is like he turns the ball over less than like anyone since he entered the league.
Yeah.
And then you go and look and it's, his assist percentiles are the same. And if you look at passing numbers, he's, there is a relationship there. This is part of why, if you ever get frustrated with a coach running some ISO down the stretch in a close game, this is a big part of why coaches do it, because
of course.
A turnover is way more costly to you in terms of what you expect the other team to do when they get the ball back than if you just miss a shot later in the clock. So you give up the chance at a great shot for any shot, but you completely eliminate the potential for a turnover.
Yes, agree.
The Raptors have kind of taken that to an extreme where we know that they run a lot of isolation in their offense. And part of that is as soon as that offense gets a mismatch, they got to go to it, because their offense, and this is the biggest thing with their half court right now, is Pascal's the only guy regularly operating with the ball who can create an advantage. Everyone else is pretty good at exploiting an advantage that's created for them, or when, Scotty's a great chaos player. When a play breaks down, his vision is like unreal. But Scotty at the top of the floor one-on-one right now is not creating a lot of stuff.
No, it doesn't go a lot anymore.
And Fred needs a pick and roll partner to do that. Like, he doesn't have the ability to finish at the rim or quite the Steph level of gravity to...
Even for Fred, like, he needs to knock down pull-up jumpers to open up the rest of his game. And when he's not shooting well, it's so easy to guard the rest of that game.
And he's finishing so poorly at the rim right now that and these two things feed into each other. Like, if he comes out and he knocks 6 threes down tomorrow, guess what's probably going to go up over the next couple games? His finishing, because teams got to be up higher on him. And anyway, so all of that is related. So short term, it's a little bit of just like play better.
Answers, all right.
The answer, if you didn't care about the long term, the answer is just like, you got to run even more through Pascal. Like, let him go.
But I don't like seeing that.
I know.
Pascal's not a Luka type of player.
And it's not the best thing long term because you need the Scotty Barnes reps. You need to figure out the other stuff.
Yeah.
Long term, the solution is you need, and I know the front office doesn't like this because defense is the priority that they're trying to build on. You got to have a couple more guys who can create offense for themselves and for others. And this goes back to the shooting or another guard or something like that. You got to have, like, look at Bones Highland off the bench for Denver. Their bench is terrible, but that guy can create advantages.
Yeah. Very key in basketball is to create advantages so that you can play successful offense.
I wish this had been more optimistic.
Me too, but listen, we're always going to tell the truth on this show. So that does it for us today, though. I'm your host, Will Lou, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Thanks again to Blake Murphy, our board producer, Derek Brandale. Shouts to Frank Baraska helping us. Best of luck and enjoy that tiramisu. And we'll be talking to you tomorrow about the Toronto Raptors.